I would like everyone to give a nice warm welcome to Timothy Jordan, who is going to be talking about Google Glass. And we will start.
Hello. How's everyone? Todd just asked, but I'm asking again for form's sake. Good? Okay. Hey, I'm Timothy Jordan. I'm a developer advocate working on Glass. And you can find out more information about me, and we can have a chat if you visit me over at Google+, google.com/+TimothyJordan. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about games, because that seems to be the right context for it. But I have a few questions first, and this is going to start with a really easy one. This is partially because of the question and partially to just know who in the audience is going to participate today. Who likes games? Okay. Everyone's going to participate today. I like that. Now here's a sort of more deep leading question, if you will. Who here believes that the average game on a smartphone, when just ported to Glass, is going to make sense on Glass? And no one. Now I know because you're paying attention because you already demonstrated you're participating. And that's the thing, is that our gaming systems look nothing like this. And I'm going to spend some time today talking about the user interaction model and the paradigms with which we design things for Glass, and how that becomes a challenge when we think about building games on Glass. I'm going to start out with some general principles that are sort of the foundation for how we think about glassware design or apps for Glass design. As those of you who have seen the design principles before, please bear with me. They're still new for some people. And then after that, I'm going to drill down just a little bit deeper into some do's and don'ts, specifically based on those principles, but looking at games in particular. Sound like fun? Woo! It's just after lunch and we're excited. Okay. Design principles. So there's 5 of them, and the first one is the most important. This is design for Glass. And what we mean by this is design specifically for the Glass platform. Because although it's a mobile device, it's fundamentally different than other mobile devices, right? It's not a rectangle with a touchscreen on it. That's clear and obvious, but when I say it out loud, it makes more sense, or at least that it should, right? And it goes deeper than just sort of how it gets put on a user. The UI changes because of that. So this is the Google+ experience on a tablet and on a phone. And you can see it's a very browsable experience. It's very much, lean back on your couch, see what your friends are up to. But when the user's wearing Glass, they're out in the world, they're doing other things, they might still want the benefit of technology and the cool stuff in Google+, but they're going to want it in a different way. Right? So this is that same experience, that same service, but on Glass. You'll notice a handful of things are different. First off, there's a single thing per view, and it's very glanceable. I briefly look at this, and I know it's a post from my friend Alex, who's on a steep climb on his bike. I need less than a second to figure that out. And if I want to interact with him, I can through some very short and quick gestures. But the thing here is that it's the same service, but it's different on Glass. It's been rethought and redesigned specifically for this experience. And most importantly, it's been tested on Glass, and we've made changes. In fact, when I've been working with developers outside of Google, some of our partners and otherwise, most of the time spent building glassware is in that iteration phase. Right? After they've thought what the design would be, they've built the prototype, and then they put it on Glass, and they go, oh. And then we started changing things together until we got to a good place. So the 4 following principles really build upon that theme, designing specifically for Glass. And the first one is don't get in the way. And this is especially both important and challenging when we're thinking about game design. Right? The idea is that I'm out in the world doing something, and I might use Glass to enhance that experience. In this case, I'm looking at some jellyfish, and I'm learning more about jellyfish. Right? You don't see something else blocking my vision here. Now, with game design, we're used to the paradigm of immersion. Capture the user's attention, engross them in the game, and keep them there. right? And usually the success metric is the more time they spend there, the more involved and immersed they are, the more valuable the game, the more they enjoy it, the more they keep coming back. With glass, that's different, because you're getting in the way of the user's life while they're out there living it. So we need to start thinking about how do we build games that highlight this difference, not fight this difference. And I'll talk more about that. Keeping it relevant. And there's two very specific ways we think about this in common use. One is over time, and the other is over space. Because relevancy has a lot to do with what now is. And when you're thinking about different computing paradigms, your cloud is your sort of forever. Your laptop might be your last year, 2 or 3, however often you replace them. Your phone could be the last month or the last week, but glass is right now. It's just this moment, and it's where you happen to be. This is one of my favorite ideas for building for glass is having a shopping list when I need it. I don't know about you, but I keep a shopping list, but every time I'm at the store, that shopping list is somewhere else, right? And so what I've started doing is I keep it digital, but wouldn't it even be cooler if when I get to the store, and maybe I check in, or Glass just knows that I'm there because I've been there for a few minutes, it surfaces my shopping list with the items that can be found at that store. How exceedingly helpful would that be? And that's because it's an experience that can know where I am and help me out in that particular moment. We want to avoid the unexpected, especially the unexpected and the unpleasant, because the unexpected and the delightful is good. Right? Surprising our users with delight is fantastic, especially when looking at entertainment or gaming. But giving them something unexpected that they also do not enjoy, that would be unfortunate. Right? And it's particularly important to remember this on glass because it's so personal to the user. They're wearing glass throughout their day. So when you come and say hello to them, right? It's something that should be helping them in their day. It's not something that you can remind them of abstractly while they're at their desk, because that's not where glass is most often used. Now, a great way to do this is to give users controls and make it clear what's going to happen when. And an example is, say, CNN, where CNN delivers short videos throughout the day on the topics that I've chosen. And to choose those topics, I go to the settings page, and I can choose the different topics. I get an idea of how many posts per day I will get per topic. And I can also choose the time of day that I can receive notifications and when I don't. So I have a lot of agency. I have a lot of choice as a user here, where I can tell CNN when I want to get this news. And so when that news comes through, it's an expected part of the experience. And the last thing is build for people. This is something that we discuss a lot, especially nowadays. I think is really important to mention, especially in the context of Google Glass. And this is what I mean by this. And I suspect most of the people in this room already know this, that the layout on your keyboard was designed to make you type slower. Who knew that? So not everybody, about 40%. Isn't that extraordinary? Doesn't it bother you on some level just a bit? Now, I'm not saying the keyboard's going to go away. We're familiar with it, and it's sort of like this universal input device. However, that layout was designed at a time that mechanical typewriters were the norm, and if you typed too fast, they'd jam. So the layout was meant to keep typists from going so fast. And in that way, actually get more work done in the day because they didn't have to deal with jams. But that's not really the case anymore. And we've done some incremental improvements, right? Like lighting the keyboard or making the keys a little bit more low-rise so that you can type a bit faster. But glass is not an incremental improvement, right? It's what we call a moonshot. It's a 10x improvement. And this is where glass users are. They're out living their dreams, on adventures, or doing the things that make them happy. But they still want the benefit of technology in their lives. So the question we got to ask ourselves as the makers and designers and developers of this glassware, is how can we give them that joy of technology while not getting in the way of their life? Always thinking about, where is the user going to use this? Who are they around? How can we make it fun for everyone? And those are them. Those are the foundational guidelines for building glass software or glassware. Designing specifically for glass and testing it on glass so that we really know what works and what doesn't. Not getting in the way of the user, never taking precedence over anything else in their life. Keeping it relevant to where they are, what time it is. Avoiding the unexpected, and especially that which is unexpected and unpleasant. And finally, building for people, solving real user problems, building games for people to use in their lives. Okay, so a few notes coming off of this specifically for games. Who has had a chance to use glass? Okay, so just maybe about 20% of the audience. The obvious things are relatively obvious, right? For input, we've got a touchpad. There are microphones. I can use voice control. There's a camera. There's a full IMU. And of course, there's location services. And for output, I've got a screen that's always there when I want it. It's never in my line of sight, but it's always in my field of view. It's 640 by 360. And of course, there's audio, either through earbuds or through the built-in audio that's just for me. And those things are interesting, but even more so is how the form factor changes how you use those items, right? Because those input and output mechanisms are on other devices, but it's different when you put it in glass and you wear it outside. So let's drill down into some of those sort of do's and don'ts, if you will. And the first one is don't design an app. And there's two important points here. First, the glass UI model is time-based. It's not an app model. At no point will you find a wall of icons that you can choose to launch, right? Instead, we use voice commands. And these voice commands aren't launch maps. It's get directions to. It's an action. It reduces the time between intent and that action, right? So instead of launch maps, enter an address, tell it where I am, I want directions by car, I just say get directions to the Moscone Center, and it happens. And all voice commands follow this form. A note about voice commands, these voice commands are built models that we release with software releases, and there's sort of a set number of them that are growing. One of them that you may be interested in is play a game. And if the user has multiple games installed, they then get to choose which game, again, by voice. Don't just port your mobile experience to glass. So this is a screenshot that we haven't actually shown very much. This is an early prototype of glass, right? The idea, what if glass was a dashboard and we showed the user a lot of information all the time? So we tried it, right? It's important to try things quickly, and when they fail, learn from them and move on. And this failed, right? It's too much information. If I'm going to sit down at my desk, I'm fine with looking through a lot of information. But if I'm walking between meetings, this is not going to work, right? It's a glanceable interface. And so even though you might be trying to have the same action or give the same benefit to the user, how you do it is going to be different on glass. And you want to test this experience everywhere you can. Right? An example of that is both indoors and outdoors. This one image, when seen through glass inside and outside, looks remarkably different. Right? And it's not just the luminosity against the background, it's also the color temperature. A little more detail there. White is the new black, which is also the name of my upcoming first album. White is the new black. The white right there, you'll notice, is very stark in its contrast, right? It's really easy to see, whereas the black part of the screen sort of fades into the background. And we establish hierarchy with different shades of color, green, red, different shades of gray. You wouldn't want to do this by changing the font size, because smaller font sizes can be hard to read on glass, right? So you'll notice there's a heading here, and then there's like different data that's differentiated and broken up visually by using color, but the font stays the same size, and it's the same font face. Be wary of head gestures. And the reason for this is that it might not work out the way you think it will, right? Because head gestures, when I'm standing still and not doing anything else, are relatively predictable. But when I walk down the street, everything changes. And to emphasize this point, here's a video of a chicken. Right? Like, humans don't operate this way. And this is another one of those cases where what you need to do is, if you're going to try head gestures, go for it. Write the experiment, and then go try it. Try it in several different environments, in different locations. Make it glanceable. The interesting thing about these two screens is that I put these in front of people, and they're like, well, which do you like better? Which has more information? Which is more usable? And opinions differ. The thing is, on the left, you've got so much visual information that even though some of it's useful, it takes you a longer time to get there. Whereas on the right, what you need to know you can get in just a glance. In fact, in about half the time. If you want, you can try and break it into chunks. Again, on the left, there's all these different places where your eye's going to go before you realize the entire picture. And on the right, there's just a handful of them. And we can even put some numbers behind this. Right? On the left side, you're going to see an average of 1.8 seconds. On the right side, half that time. And it's the same information. It's the same usage for the user, but how we've displayed it is remarkably different. And because of that, you also want to design for emotion. It can be simple. You can just be telling the user, you're doing good on your run. Keep going. And finally, include other people in the fun. I mean, this might not be so obvious when we're doing video game design. But I think it is obvious when we do board game design. Do you know? I mean, think about the last game of Werewolf or Mafia that you played, right? You had the game master, you had the people who are participating, and you had the people who are watching, hanging out in the background. It was fun for everybody to see that game unfold. What if glass were like that? Here's a photo I recently took of my team playing a word game, something like Taboo, using glass. Right? And glass was the interface for this that just made the game move along, but then it was the people that were really the mechanic. Now, there's been a lot of game design for glass done already. In fact, Glue released this great game on glass called Spalista. It was a great start for sort of seeing how to use the glass interface and give the user an opportunity for whimsy on glass, not just productivity. Yeah? And we recently released some experiments for trying different sensors out and using new kinds of gameplay based on those sensors and the form factor of glass. And the next step is for all of you to figure out how to make this happen. And what I mean by this is that the next step in glass gaming design is not going to look like a game on your phone or your tablet or even like a board game. It's probably going to look a lot more like IRL games. But it's going to include this component that makes it all that much more engaging for the user and for the people around them. Now, our job is to work on this stuff and make sure the platform is flexible and you can do some amazing things with it. And I'm just waiting for and hoping for and here to encourage, what does innovation on games for glass look like? And the next big step where everybody sort of stops and says, oh, that's what it is, has yet to happen, which means you guys are probably the ones that are going to do it. It's going to happen any day now. For more information on the product and the platform, developers.google.com/glass. Thank you so much.